So, welcome. We are looking 1 year dead in the eye. And my guess is that no one on this call and no one in our industry, I don't think anybody in general anticipated or expected or believed that this could go on for a year. But here we are. Groundhog Day was a long 365 days this time. As always, I want to thank every single one of you for your support, for your tenacity, your creativeness, and for ultimately supporting one another. Someone asked me today, actually in my interview, whether or not the industry would survive. She barely got the question out of her mouth before I said yes. This is an industry that is here to stay. We will look potentially different, but we will continue to build experiences that everyone needs. When the human race likes to gather, it needs to gather for all sorts of reasons. And this industry of remarkable human beings is not going away. And I assured her of that we might have been behind the curtain and we might have stepped out from behind the curtain for this last year, but we're here to stay. We're here to be better. We will be more innovative. We are progressive. We are doing everything it takes. And each day we learn something new. So thank you to each of you. It appears that there is light coming in at the end of the tunnel. What that means, I don't think we really know yet in terms of reopening. And what we ask is that everybody remain focused on safety in whatever form that looks like for you. But we will be in charge of ensuring that as we open and as we regather, that that's safe and ultimately we can continue and that we learn. So I'm going to turn it over to those who know far more about legislative asks than I do and information, and say thank you. And as always, I personally and the entire Live Events Coalition appreciate every single one of you. So I'm going to turn it over to Sharon. Thanks, guys.
And actually, I'm going to pass it right on to Dwayne. Before I do that, can we ask that you put your state before your name?
No.
If you can rename and put
in
your
the chat box?
If they can rename themselves, I don't know, as attendees, if they can rename themselves and put their state so we know where everybody's chiming in.
You're on a webinar at this point. So
okay.
You see that.
So then I'll hand it off to Dwayne directly.
Thank you, Sharon. Good day, everybody. Pretty big couple of weeks we've had here. I keep saying that. I know I sound like a stuck record, but every time we think we know everything we're supposed to know, we find out there was a bunch of stuff we didn't know that we didn't know. Things are starting to pick up speed. I'm going to, first of all, thank the government affairs team here. They're all on panel today, starting with our newest member, Wendy from Minnesota, who was an absolute crusher and gets it done, takes initiative and understands the issues well. And I'm thrilled and proud to have her as part of the core group here. Dewan and I have been working together for a while. In fact, Dewan and Wendy and I are kind of a roadshow now when we do these members of Congress meetings. We kind of know each other's rhythm. I know when to call on them, what they're going to really be able to take and run with. And now we're at the point where Dewan and Wendy are splitting off and doing some of these on their own, because lo and behold, we're getting enough of them that they're happening concurrently all of a sudden. And we can't all three be on all of them. The extent to which we can do these meetings in a lot of cases depends on all y'all out in the states, especially with representatives, but also with senators. We really want to have at least one, if not two, constituents on these calls. Number one, it tells the member of Congress that we're not just this national group flying in to lobby not another one of those calls. We're showing them that there's real damage being done right there in their state and or district if it's a rep. So this is where you come in a lot of cases. I've already talked a lot about how you guys are really needed to be able to help us do the outreach. And that is just the next piece of it. is that when the outreach is done and we've got a response, or we've done follow-up and from the follow-up we got response, this is a point at which the rubber meets the road. We need to take a meeting with these folks and tell our story in longer form. We generally get about 30 minutes. It's a little dicey getting the meeting set up like any other meeting. We have to get everybody's time coordinated. We're in different time zones and all of this, but we're now starting to get to be old sages at it. Some of them are on Zoom, some of them are on calls, but we really do want to be able to call out to you guys and say, who is it in this rep's district in your state, or who is it in your state if it's a senator, that can sit on this meeting and can be called on to tell your story, so that the member can see that something's going awry right there in my state, and I need to pay attention. This isn't just a US concern, it's really happening in my state too. It's a lot easier with places like New York and Florida and Kentucky and Oregon and California and New Jersey and Massachusetts, and sorry if I forgot to name your state, where we have a lot of very active LEC members and state chapter members. Not always, but it's usually easier. The reps get hard in the big states because there's so many districts that, in spite of how many LEC members we may have, it's just hard to find somebody who actually lives in that representative's district. So a little bit of work has to be done on our part. And oftentimes we're going to call out to you and say, hey, do you know anybody in District 19? And you have to be able to go to the congressional website, type in all the zip codes of the people you might know, see if that rep pops up. It's a little bit of a thing. But with a little bit of determination, we can generally unearth somebody who's in our industry who can be a good representative on the call and help us tell our story. We've been doing that a lot. We have 16 just in the last couple of weeks. We have 14 more in the works, either done and on the calendar, or we're working on, and we're very close. I'm going to let these guys talk a little bit more about some of these other things, but before I hand it over to Dewan, first of all, I'll also say that we have had traction even just this morning. We met with Representative Salazar in Florida, who is a freshman, somebody who's eager to get her star on the sidewalk, if you will. Doesn't know her way around the Capitol yet, obviously, because she's only been there for 2 months. But she sits on small business committee, and we're going to work small business committee from the ground up and from the top down. So we've now talked with the newest member on small business committee and this most senior member, that being Representative Velasquez, who's the chairwoman of the committee. And we have, believe it or not, the same buy-in from both as of this morning. So this was a good moment. Whit from Subject Matter sat with me on the call, and the constituent was amazing. She just stuck the landing when she told her story, and it was a nearly emotional moment, if I may say. This is a person who's lost 95% of their business, is pushing 60, and you can't just pivot to another career or job at this point, has even tried to go find a job. And it's the kind of compelling story that we need to happen, especially on the GOP side. The GOP folks are a little bit more hesitant to appropriate a lot more money to problems. And so having this conversation with them is always about finding a bipartisan place to stand. And that's what they told me. Actually, I didn't bring it up. We rarely talk party when we're on these. But they brought up the fact that small business is the one place in our country where we should all be able to agree that partisan doesn't enter into it, because we all own them. We're both parties. Some are right in the middle. Some haven't decided, but really this should not be partisan. And they brought it up, not me. I consider that a huge win. Whit from Subject Matter texted me, and it was the first thing he said. He said, did you see that? This is what we're looking for. We've been told that what's going to get on the Senate floor in this next session, once they pass the bill that they're about to pass, what's going to get the floor is going to be a ton of stuff, and almost none of it will get considered. The things that'll raise to the top of the stack are going to be the things that have bipartisan support in the committee that they belong. So if one senator from one party says, I have this idea, and he's pretty passionate about it, and he introduces it, it's like, okay, that's one thing. Like most things, it's going to get kicked down the list a little bit. But if something shows up, say from the House, that has a huge committee, and it's from small business, and it's got bipartisan support, like our proposal, it's going to get considered at the top of the list. So this is a huge day in terms of having an inkling of an opening about potential bipartisan support for our ask. I want to say one more thing about our ask. I want to turn it over to Dewan, and that is we are very clearly and only and succinctly asking for, drum roll please, an amendment of SVOG. That is our stance. That is our position. We have now heard over and over from these members, look, the most expedient, easy way for us to get you the help that you're asking for, a grant program, not another loan, not another PPP, is to take legislation that already exists. Don't try to stand up something new. Take something that's already in existence, and get that edited, amended, so that it has a broader qualification base. We're shooting to have that be all of us. We have other organizations in the industry that are more narrow than us. Maybe they just represent trade show. Maybe they just represent corporate. They're also saying the exact same thing. So the second thing we're hearing is make sure that all your brothers and sisters out there in other organizations are also asking for the same thing. Get on the same page, you guys. If we have 7 proposals, none of them are going to happen. So we've been striving really hard so far this week to find consensus amongst the other groups out there. I'm happy to say we have a win with the large trade show and corporate group. That's now a conglomeration of, I think, 7 different independent organizations. As of this morning, they agree that our position is the same. We have a couple more boxes to tick with them, not important to today's discussion, but by and large, we now have something like 7 groups asking for the same thing, and that is a straight up edit of who's eligible for SVOG. Rename the thing to SBOG, Small Business Operators Grants, if you want to, or keep it the same. We don't care. Just open it up. This is the one thing that we could potentially get most quickly, most directly. How much money they put into it, we don't know. We're not there yet. The support for it, to the point where they'll literally write the piece of legislation, we're not there yet. We have the support. No one has said, oh, let me write that for you. But we have a summary now. We know what our industry looks like. We know who's going to be included. So we've gone a long way in 2 weeks. You can probably hear from my voice, this is like my 5th meeting today. So, and it's early here. I'm in Oregon. Sun is up. So I'm going to turn it over to Dewan. Dewan, give me some of the perspective from your side of government affairs and what you've been seeing and hearing, and what's the news we have to report on your end.
Well, about the calls, hello everybody. I'm glad to be here, and Dwayne, thanks. I just wanted to give you guys a little insight into what's going on in these calls and what we're accomplishing. But the very first thing I want to let you know is that to date, and really for the large part, it's been since the beginning of the year, we've spoken to members of Congress or the members and their staff, 17 of those to date. And right now we already have 15 more scheduled tomorrow on through the next couple of weeks. It far exceeded my expectation that we would get this kind of engagement. And back to what you said, Dwayne, it all starts with that one LEC constituent contacting their representative, senator or congressperson, and just making that heartfelt outreach supported by LEC documents that really paint a picture for us nationally. And yet that email comes back, let's get on the phone. So what's happening is that we'll have the constituent, we'll have somebody from the Government Relations Committee at the LEC, maybe a couple of those people, and then their staff members and possibly even the members themselves on the phone. We're able to, well, first of all, they always limit it to 30 minutes. I have yet to be on a call that's 30 minutes. They normally exceed that because we're engaging with them, because they have questions, because they want to learn. So that I can let you know. I was a little nervous, quite honestly. I do event design, for Christ's sake. I don't know early on what to expect, but what I do find is that they're all listening. The first call, I thought, they're not listening to a thing we're saying, but actually they really were, because you could tell by the questions that they had at the end of the call. But what we're accomplishing is that we're educating them. Across the board, they always ask the question, didn't you guys get PPP? Didn't you guys kind of, tell me what? So our job has been educating them about our industry, educating them about what's not working. And that is, yes, we're taking all that money, but then we provide case studies to show that businesses have had to go far beyond the government funding programs of an EIDL loan, a PPP-1 or PPP-2. And you can tell they're hearing this for the first time. We're also accomplishing a lot by having a constituent on the phone. So as opposed to me speaking nationally, they're hearing it from somebody in their backyard, in their district. So it becomes very, very real. We're able to also let them understand our thoughts on legislation. We don't write legislation, but here are our thoughts. And back to what Dwayne said, we've learned through this process, just take existing law and expand it. So they like hearing that. And then the best calls have been those where you, all of a sudden you start seeing them in those offices where it's a legislative assistant in the office or the member himself. We were on a call earlier this morning. The Congresswoman, who was a freshman, was on the phone with us for 25 minutes. And as we laid out everything, and by the way, she really got it quickly, it's like, who can I call? How do we do this? How do we connect them? Because we're very clear and shameless that at the end of our call of explaining things, we say we need a champion to help us. And how can you help us? And do we have your support? It's kind of nice to be able to put that question to them directly and get an amen and get them understanding. So it's great things like we're all saying, it's great things of them understanding and then engaging them. And Dwayne, I don't know how much more to add except that it's all working. We see it working. And it was interesting because this call this morning was what we know happens. We hear, we'd ask you with subject matter talk about an echo chamber, which essentially means they all kind of start talking. And the Congresswoman was saying, well, I was just with this representative in New York and we were just talking about salt, but then we started talking about the events industry. And I told him I had a call with you guys today, and the whole thing just rolled out into those wonderful things like you get a lot of buzz around our industry and our needs, and that they're getting it from all sides. So that's what's happening with the calls, and we have lots more to go.
That's great news, Dewan. And I want to point out too that Dewan and I haven't been in the room today until now. And so I'm hearing this for the first time myself. So that's great news. You got a grin out of me. This is as much as I grin. I always look grouchy. So this is grinning really big for me. Wendy, talk a little bit about what you've, first of all, found in your home state and the successes we've had lately there, and some angles that you guys have been messing around with in terms of another possible way we can get to this win.
Yep. So I think some of the things we've been talking about as a group is that we're getting really tactical and really surgical in our approach to these things. So we're looking at, everybody across the members of Congress, who is the best fit, right, to help us get this SBOG grant program expanded out to the Shutter Business Operators Grant. So what committees are all these guys sitting on? We're looking at who knows who and who has influences with key stakeholders, and who are early adopters when it used to be called the Save Our Stages program. Who were the people that signed up early on for that program that might be really passionate about this and want to help us get this thing extended? So just want to give you a couple of examples. So in Minnesota, for example, as I started looking at committees, I discovered that both of our senators in Minnesota are sitting on the Agricultural Committee, which says a lot, right? Because there's only 10 people on that committee and 2 of them are from Minnesota. And then on the House side, we have 3 reps that sit on that committee. And so clearly that is a really important industry in our state and something that they would have interest and a passion about. And so that led me to start thinking about, well, what about fairs and festivals in the agricultural community? How have they been impacted? And I happen to have a connection to somebody in southern Minnesota who works on fairs and festivals in that community. And he was able to get me some really great information that basically says, that's a $4.6 billion part of our industry. It is not small. And those fairs have essentially been closed, right? And I'm trying to get the numbers right now on exactly how many have not happened, but it's 90+% have not happened. So that's a $4 billion problem. And so that's a really good example that we can take back to these reps who sit on the Ag Committee and explain how the events piece intersects in to that agricultural work that they have a stake in. So that's one of our first examples. And then we're also, as we mentioned, the Small Business Committee is super important. I happen to have 3 reps that sit on that committee from Minnesota. So we're having some really good conversations with those folks in Minnesota about intersections there. And Angie Craig, for example, is on both the Ag Committee and the Small Business Committee. So she's even a better person that we need to be talking to because she has a stake in both of those committees. Another example, not in Minnesota, but looking over at Colorado, Senator Hickenlooper in Colorado is the former governor of Colorado, and Andy has a great relationship with him. So we have been talking with him on putting pressure on Senator Ben Cardin, who is the chairman of the Senate Small Business Committee. So it's this layering effect of all these different relationships and how they all kind of intertwine and overlap, and one person can put influence on another. And so that's what we're really, I think, getting our heads around now is, how do we have these conversations to explain how it all fits together and who they need to talk to help us move this to the next level. And so that's really what's been happening, I would say, over the last 3 weeks, is getting really tactical in thinking through how all these things intertwine. So I think that's the feedback I have at this point.
Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you brought up the idea of surgery and being tactical. It's something that I think was famously missing. We maybe thought we were tactical, but at the beginning of this little section, I did say we keep learning all the things that we thought we knew that we didn't know, and so forth. And this is just one of them. And I want to highlight just for a second, our relationship with subject matter has grown and improved, and they are seeing our seriousness. And by the way, we're kind of their favorite client. So not to brag, but they've identified that we are not like most other of their clients, to where we'll probably do okay with or without them. They've seen that this is a group of people that without them, we kind of won't do okay. Andy, if you're there, really, are you still there, Andy, by the way? Available? May I? Nope.
Yes.
Hi.
Trying to
Hello.
eat lunch.
Can you, this is not scripted, so I apologize if we go a little bit over, but I think it's really important to note because all y'all in the States, I am still going to end this by saying to you, spoiler alert, we need your reps and senators engaged. Even if they're not on committee, we're taking all of these meetings. We're getting that echo chamber full. But we're also going to be singling some of you out. I've talked to Illinois this week. I've talked to Maryland this week, and a couple others who I'm sorry, I apologize, or it's going to skip my memory. But I wanted Andy to talk a little bit pursuant to that. How did you get that relationship you have with an incoming as John Hickenlooper? Tell people a little bit about how it is you get to the point where we can just call them and go, let's meet. We have more to talk about.
Well, so we have Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett out here. And so Hickenlooper was a little bit different because he was our past governor. And so we had folks on our board here in Colorado that had a previous relationship with him. I will say on the Bennett side, we didn't really have a relationship with them at all. All we did is basically identify our organization, look up who is in their office, essentially call them and email them until we could get a meeting with their staffers. And then once we built rapport with their staffers, we requested a secondary meeting. And this was a year ago, months ago. Oh yeah, I guess like May. Where we requested to meet with the senators themselves. I think it's important that you do both things. The staffers have a certain role to play in all this, and then the actual representatives and senators also obviously have a role to play in all this. So it's important to get acquainted with like what that all means, and Dwayne is an amazing person to run that by. Pretty much anyone on this call would be able to kind of brief you on that sort of thing. It's a different type of conversation when you're talking directly to a senator or directly to a representative as opposed to the staffers. But yeah, I would say, it's just you're a constituent for your state, and these people were elected to help the people of their state, which includes all of you, right? So their job literally is to make your voice heard on the national stage, and so. Don't be shy, don't be scared to have that respect for yourself that your voice does matter. And I say this all the time in Colorado as well. Just because we're in the events industry doesn't mean that we're any less important than any other industry out there, even though you don't hear about the events industry very often compared to like oil and gas or technology or something like that. So, it's important to go in with that mindset. But I would just say, It's rare, I think, for a representative or senator to not agree to work with your organization. It's really hard to meet as an individual. That's why we've done this with the LEC, and that's why we have state coalitions now. If you're having trouble getting a meeting with a state senator or representative, I'm sure email us, let us know, and we'll have pointers to give you, because it's sometimes you got to be a little bit relentless, but you'll get it in the end. So, yeah.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. I want to close by saying I feel fairly confident that if any organization can get this done, ours can. I'm not saying it's done, nor am I saying it's going to be easy, nor am I saying we know everything we have to do to make it happen. This is an unfolding narrative. Every day, the narrative gets a little bit different. Every day we get little bits of good news. I can tell you there were months there where we didn't. There were months where we were told to wait. They're all arguing. Let them go on recess, let them come back, and we'll regroup and see what we're going to do next. And during those times, our story didn't change much and our approach didn't change much. For the first time, I can tell you that that's not the case anymore. Our approach changes almost daily. We get some bit of good news, some bit of light at the end of the tunnel almost daily. We're at the point now where we're trying to just continue to get enough of those little lights into the screen as pixels to start to be able to form a picture of this being a done deal. We're not there. We're getting closer. Figure on us going about till the end of March on this effort to reach out to as many key MOCs as possible, even rank and file people who we don't necessarily know if they fit into the picture or not. Sophomore MOCs, freshman MOCs, leadership. We're going to continue this, and we're going to be calling back for second meetings. Nothing happens on the first meeting, by the way. It's usually the second or third where you start to get action. So that what we're talking about for the last 25 minutes is going to continue probably into March. And then things are going to start to shift again when we see what kind of support we have, when we see what kind of momentum we have. We'll go to the next stage with it. So I want you to know that sometimes these meetings are going to sound a lot the same as the last one. Hopefully it doesn't all become drivel, because the four people you're looking at from government affairs, not to mention Sharon and Nancy, and the others who aren't on this panel, are working their butts off every day. And you've got a good group out there slinging it for you. I hope that means something. We don't need credit for it. We don't need kudos. We don't need anything. But if we call out on you, say, can you get a hold of this rep, or can you find us a constituent, or did you send that letter package out? There's a reason for it, because it's starting to work. And thanks very much for all of your support and for all that you have been doing. And one other quick thing, Ivory will be pissed at me if I don't mention, we're going to do a little bit of a new thing starting in 2 weeks at the next all states meeting. We're going to have an hour of office time in a Zoom for all you guys to come into the Zoom and ask questions and discuss things that are on your mind, ideas you have, things about bills already in place that you don't understand. Do I qualify for this? All that stuff. We're going to give you guys a chance to just come and have a quick open forum with the government affairs team. We'll answer as many questions as we can, and it'll basically be the hour after this meeting. So we're going to roll that out soon. And thanks everybody again. I'll turn it back over to Sharon.
Far from the mute button there for some reason. Are there any questions that need to be answered? We have one question. Yeah, Nancy, did you get your hair done for this webinar? That's the pressing question here.
No, I actually did it myself. And my hairdresser, who's also one of my best friends, will be so thankful that you all think that she got up and came and did my hair, but absolutely not. No makeup artist, no hairdresser, just me. But thank you for asking.
And we're just reading one of the questions. Nancy, can you peruse that question quickly?
So the question is anyone representing Montana? We did have someone reach out, didn't we, Nancy, on that? Let me look really quick. See
I believe so. I'm actually going to check the map. That's the way that I can figure it out. Montana. Where's Montana?
The answer is yes. I don't. I'm looking up the information.
Where the heck's Montana?
Montana.
But if you have other questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A while we're looking up the Montana question.
There was another one about California in the chat.
Is Montana the state next to North Dakota?
You didn't really listen to that, did you?
I did. Trust me. Look, for all of you that are watching this and for everybody who knows me, you know that I am transparent about things I don't know. I am horrible about geography. But we have 3 states that we don't have members in. And so what happens is they don't light up on my little map. So, but I don't see Montana. So currently it does not appear that we have members actually in Montana. So clearly Montana is one of those 3 states that I don't know which ones they are because they're not lit and they don't give me a name. So whoever it is that is asking about Montana, the short answer is, oh, there's Will. As Andy said, yes, somebody has reached out, but we would love to engage with you, Will, if you are in Montana. So,
And there is a small biz committee person that we need to get to in Montana.
yeah.
Will email me. I'll connect you with that person once I find it. I'm digging through spreadsheets right now.
Are there any other questions? Please put it in the Q&A.
I'll say, Nancy, Montana is 2 states above Colorado. Since Andy just replied.
I know where Colorado is.
It's right next to Idaho.
We're going to send Nancy back to 4th grade when she learned her states and capitals.
Do you remember that they would have those placemats that you get for small children? I need one of those and I'm just going to carry it with me.
You do. I'll be sending you one.
Thank
So,
you.
It doesn't look like there's any other questions coming in on the Q&A. So Nancy, would you like to bring us home?
Sure. I've said this a million times and I'll say it again. It's been the most humbling and honoring year that I have had in my entire life. And what it is because of all of you. It's because you are remarkable human beings. And as Dwayne said, please know that we are absolutely working day in and day out to not only get the relief that we need, but to make sure that, God forbid, we ever hit something like this that will lock us out, that we never have to walk into an elected official's office and say, hi, we're the live events industry, and have them go, well, what's that? So if there's one real positive at the moment, and we're going to continue to build those positives, it's that we've had this amazing opportunity to educate not only our elected officials, but I think people outside of our industry just in general who didn't understand what we did, didn't understand why we were so important, didn't understand that we are an industry of highly talented professional individuals. That's a win. And it's a win that each of you take with you, that each of you should continue to be an ambassador for our industry. So if somebody says, what do you do? Explain to them what you do, but explain to them the industry in which you do it. I've said it before. Much like construction, we can't do our jobs by ourselves. We have an architect, an engineer, a general contractor, and a sub. The difference between us and construction is, if our doors open at 6, there is no pushback. Our doors open at 6. It's a remarkable group of human beings. We are a family. Many of you may have seen or not seen that Isaac Rothwell, who is the founder of this organization, ran into a huge issue. Was it last week? I've lost track actually of when it was. But Isaac was on a job site in California, and his child was hit by a icicle. I call it an iceberg. It was an icicle, and had to be helicoptered out to another hospital. This industry absolutely galvanized itself to help make sure we could get him home. That's who we are. Strangers came out of the woodwork saying, let me see if I can find a pilot. People that knew him said this. This is who we are. We are a family, and we're a family that knows when somebody needs help, they need help. Here's the good news. We got Isaac home, and Violet, who is 3, is fine. But it was a scary, scary situation for all. And so I don't know if other industries would have done what we did. He put it out on LinkedIn and he put it out on our Facebook page, and instantly people came to help. So you are never alone. You have a support network that is massive. That is a gift that most other people don't get. So even at the bottom of this well that we've all been in and the darkness that we have all sat in, there is so much good that is going to come out of this and has come out of this. And my hope is that we don't ever forget, and that we remain the better industry that I believe we have become because of this as we all move forward. We're not competitors anymore. We're all colleagues. And that's amazing and exciting. So thank you to each of you. Again, if you have questions, you have ideas, you have thoughts, we're here to hear them. And our hope is that we can answer them. But let us know what you need to know. Let us know if there's a webinar topic that you want us to put out. Let us know if there's something specific or you have an idea. Please, we can only be as good as you are to provide us information and needs. We work for you. And sometimes it may feel like we're not doing anything, but we are every single day. There is a large group of human beings beating down doors and making sure that we're heard. So thank you. Be proud of yourselves as an industry. And again, we will be better, as hard as that may sound, for all of this. I truly, truly believe that. So I thank each and every one of you, and I look forward to the next one.